What is up, everybody? Welcome back here to Debbie Royale YouTube channel. New show today. What we're going to be diving into is Dynasty bargain bin targets. We're looking at trades, some Dynasty values out there, but also at startup value. So what we're going to be doing is diving into ADP right now, looking at, hey, who are some bargains after this from the 16th round on, right? So we're talking late round, 16th to 30th round guys that, hey, maybe you want to target. We're going to be going over player spotlights, trade values, all of that. And then if you're in a startup, you can kind of identify these guys late. Or if you're out there and you're in a dynasty league, some trade targets, you can go out there for cheap. So kind of killing two birds with one stone here, trying to be a little bit different out there than all the content out there. So let's dive in. So when we're looking at just ADP, we're going to start with the quarterbacks first. So remember, we're looking at 16th round or further. So you're seeing where kind of the value goes there. You'll see all the way from Joe Milton to Zach Wilson down there at the 25th round. So we're looking at quarterbacks here. So the guys that stand out to me, and when we're talking bargain bin, what we're looking at is either value that can, players that can increase in value there. They're valuable right now, or can provide some production or unseen production this year, right? So four guys that stand out in that 16th range for me and more. Sam Howell, QB 35, sitting there at that kind of that late round QB there. And the thing with Sam Howell, when you're talking about him, and we'll get into kind of the numbers, he's only 23 years old, and we're thinking quarterbacks in this league and the need for quarterbacks. I think he's a value there. Spencer Rattler, rookie out of South Carolina, QB 36. Drew Lock backing up Daniel Jones. And I think that's just about could get on the field, right? So Drew Lock's one of those areas where, and we've seen him produce from a fantasy perspective. So in a location where he could step on the field, has neighbors there, kind of has that offense that you like with the ball, and just could be that guy that slings it, that gets you fantasy points if Daniel Jones either gets injured again or isn't ready to start the season. And then Jameis Winston, playing behind, Deshaun Watson. And what does that look like? We've seen all the videos already out of Deshaun Watson camp, not looking great this offseason. So he is an interesting late round grab as someone who could provide value for you as a QB 2/3 if he's able to start, right? He's probably your QB 4 or 5, but interesting kind of way to go towards that late round. And QB 46, not a bad value. Now, the guys I want to highlight here, just kind of talk about a little bit more. Sam Howell, sitting there at that QB 35. You see kind of where he's going in terms of our rankings as well down there. Last year, very hot and cold. 3,900 yards, but also 21 touchdowns and 21 interceptions. And that's not great when you're thinking of like the grand scheme of things. It's the reason why he got traded to the Seahawks. However, his location matters to me, right? New offensive system coming in, new offensive coordinator from Washington, college football over there. What they were able to do with Michael Penix Jr. in that offense. He's tied. He has a pretty good offensive line. They've done a pretty good job of building around that offensive line unit. And he's got JSN Lockett and DK Metcalf, even Noah Fant out there, running backs, Walker Charbonnet. So when you're looking at, what could be if he does able to start, you're talking about a guy that could probably be a top 12 QB again, right? And in Superflex and in Dynasty, these are the guys that kind of go after if you're going after those backup quarterbacks. Now, he definitely has some things to work on, mechanics, those type of things. But if the Seahawks kind of struggle this first year with Geno Smith could be gone after this year. And they just gave Howell that contract. You could see Sam Howell maybe being their QB of the future. And at QB 35, he's a fun piece to grab and stash because as soon as he starts and as soon as they say, hey, he's going to be starting next year, his value goes up to at least QB 22, 23 in that range, right? And his value in the trade market right now, Howell for Kyle Trask in the third. That's a pretty smash on Howell's side. Howell, Najee Harris for David Montgomery. Again, Najee and David could kind of finish similar. Then you get the Howell and the QB and Superflex. I'd lean there. And then Sam Howell for Darnell Mooney in a third. As much as there are Mooney truthers out there, Christian Williams here at the channel, I still lean Howell in that scenario, and I think he is a value at that QB 36, 35 area. Now, the next guy is Spencer Rattler, and this one's just simply because you know what? Derek Carr is terrible. And I think that Derek Carr could really struggle. And I know he got the contract, but when you're looking at his inconsistent play and what he did, his dead cap after this season falls to 17 million. As opposed to 45 million. So there's a way where, New Orleans Saints are pretty good at getting out of the cap hell that they are. That Derek Carr maybe not be on this roster if he underwhelms again, right? And when you're looking at what Spencer Rattler was able to do, so those are his numbers from last year at South Carolina, he finished second in the class in both catchable throw percentage and on-target throw rate. So he's been pretty good there. If he turns back into what he was when he was a freshman at Oklahoma, that could be one of those guys that kind of is interesting, right? Has the arm talent. We've seen that 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions there. And just based on the landing spot, the experiment's not working. And if Rattler's that guy moving forward, at QB 37-ish and where he's getting kind of valued, not a bad kind of, grab there. Now, as far as like where he's going in dynasty value, there is more of a upside with him in dynasty because people do like the spot. So, Gus Edwards for a third, if you're taking a shot at a third, I don't mind taking a shot on Spitzer Rattler in terms of that. You're really swapping thirds there because that's really where Rattler was going in most leagues in Superflex. And then Rattler and Njoku for Evan Ingram in a third. I like the Evan Ingram side if you're contending and you're really going for it. You need that tight end. But tearing down Njoku and getting Rattler on the back end is not a bad deal. That's a pretty fair deal there. But I do think Rattler is a value at that current ADP. Now, when we're jumping over to running backs, we're taking a look at that. This is the land of the rookie running backs and just the old guys, right? Or maybe the sophomore disappointments like Tank Bigsby and some of those guys here. This is where they're getting valued right now. And there is a lot of value in these ranges. So let's take a look at kind of some of the running backs. Tyler Algier, running back 51, back up to Bijan Robinson. Ray Davis, running back 54. Rico Dowdle, running back 59. Rasheen Ali, running back 70. Evan Hull and Blake Watson. I've talked plenty about Ali and Watson. Go check out the stash videos that I've talked about. Of course, I like those guys. I do like Evan Hull's pass catching ability in a running back 74 in PPR leagues. That could be a way that you lean to. And then Ray Davis as well is getting a little bit of buzz out there from some rookies, guys that you take late in that value. But the two guys that I want to kind of highlight, Tyler Algier to me is an interesting dynasty piece of where he's going, right? ADP's running back 51. So you take him way late, right? You're getting value at that running back 49 spot, even here at TDR. But when you're thinking of what Algier did as a rookie, he was running back 31. He had almost 1,200 total yards. You like that. And the red zone touches is where he got. Now, Arthur Smith, is gone, right? So he didn't have his efficiency last year. We know we saw the 37 red zone touches last year. Explosive run rate wasn't really there, all of those things. I understand that Bijan Robinson is the running back one. I'm not saying Algier is going to take the workload away because Arthur Smith's not there. However, Algier to me has value because he's shown that he can be a very good running back in this league. When you think of total yards that rookie year, what he's been able to do. And if Bijan goes down at a position that a lot of running backs go down on, he immediately chalks in as a running back too, if that happens, right? So Tyler Algier to me has value at running back 51 because he's going to get valued as a top 24 guy if Robinson goes down. This season, the way that running backs are getting valued in Dynasty is what can they do for me next? Well, Algier next up, if Bijan goes down, it's there. And I just like having him as that backup, that guy that and he might get some standalone value depending on how this team utilizes kind of their running backs in the room. I know he's coming from that McVay kind of offense. We've seen him kind of dominate with that running back one. And I recently wrote about it in our Substack, talking about how they see Bijan being that CMC. But to me, he's worth the value shot here because you've seen him be consistent. You've seen him actually produce. And he's one injury away from me to top 24 back. Now, the next guy that I'm going to kind of lean on a little bit, Rico Dowdle. You know what? I believe, I'm a Cowboy fan. He's going to be fighting for Ezekiel Elliott this season. Ezekiel Elliott is not very good. I'm going to be honest with you. I love him as a player. I love him there, but he is just not as efficient as he has been in the past. And when you're looking at this, like Dowdle was pretty sneaky good last year, right? 16th in yards after contact per attempt. 23rd lowest stuff rate according to fantasy points data. And, when you're thinking of it, like we think of kind of that back end running back that has value. At running back 59, I think there's a scenario where Dowdle, if they don't add to this running back room, could be the starter midseason. I think that he could take over usage right away, volume, right? I like Zeke, but I think Dowdle could be that guy. And for contenders or anybody that's looking for that running back late that has a possibility of getting production, Dowdle is the guy. He has that in there, and he's really going for just a fourth. Jelani Woods in a third, John Mechie in a third. And as much as I like Mechie, like you're getting a running back that could have, win now, value. And when you look at the depth chart, could be running back one. We don't know what this coaching staff is going to say. They like Rico a lot. Looking at this moving forward, you're getting a running back one, possibly at running back 59 prices of like a running back 3-ish, right? And we think of depth, we think of starters. If you're 10 or more starters, Rico's the type of guy to kind of target out there. And I wouldn't mind throwing a fourth at this kid. Like I really wouldn't. I think that is a value there. And I think he could be going for a third or second at the middle of the season when we're talking about this as the season progresses. Now, Talking about wide receivers, there's a ton of wide receivers in this range, right? Jalen McMillan, rookies are kind of going off the board at this range. Older guys, Kendrick Bourne, or like the never has been Sky Moore, those type of guys are definitely going in this range. As far as wide receivers, there's a lot in this range, kind of the go target. I kind of included a lot. We're going to highlight two of them, but Demario Douglas, we're going to get into him. Wan'Dale Robinson, I think, is a fun wide receiver 2 option, except for when you're thinking of Darren Waller retiring, go get Wan'Dale Robinson. I think that he could be that number 2 target getter on this team. Rondale Moore is out there. A.T. Perry could be. Michael Thomas is gone now. You're looking at Chris Olave being there. I think A.T. Perry is sneaky ad there. And especially, as someone who's in Best Ball Dynasty, A.T. Perry is a guy to go target in Best Ball Dynasty as well. DJ Chark, he's out there still. We're playing for the Chargers. What could he be? I mean, there's always, the hope that he kind of bounces and is that guy that we expect him to be. Andrea Sovis and then Trey Tucker are all guys that I like, but the two guys I definitely want to highlight. One, Demario Douglas. I don't think we get enough buzz out there. I do understand the Patriots went out and drafted, Jalen Polk and Baker, Javon Baker, and they went out in there and grabbed in this room. But Demario was pretty sneaky good last year. 79 targets, 49 catches, 561 yards, right? Didn't have a touchdown. So you want to see that, but had that 18% target share, which was good. And then from week 7 onwards, he had over a 20% target share. So we saw kind of what he could be. And I think that he's having a hell of a camp. And the other interesting thing to note too, is, the new kickoff return rules, Demario Douglas could get out there, right? And he could get some production there. So depending on where your fantasy league is, if you get points on return and those type of things, Douglas could be a sneaky ad. I think that's someone to kind of look at, but also just projecting to be a slot guy. And Drake May could make him look very good. Drake May's ability to look at what he did with Downs, look at what he's been able to do with his receivers in that offense in North Carolina. Demario fits that mold a little bit, and I think he's getting undervalued right now. 25 third. I don't mind taking the risk with Demario Douglas there. Malachi Corley, who would you rather have moving forward, right? That's one of those rookies. I think you can get a plus on the other side for Douglas. I think Malachi Corley's value is a little higher than that. I like to get a pick back, like that off ramp, right? 4th or 3rd back. And then Demario Douglas, Edwards for Zach Moss. I like the Edwards and Douglas side there. Zach Moss is one of those assets I think is interchangeable, but Edwards in that offense, I think that's a pretty good swap. Plus you get Douglas back. Demario Douglas, I think, is going to be quietly a very, very solid PPR option if he can establish himself with Drake May. All right. Our next guy is someone that burned a lot of people last year. Actually, his whole career. Luckily, it hasn't been me because I haven't been buying into him too much. But when you're looking at overall, Rondale Moore getting traded over to the Falcons from the Cardinals is an interesting value play for the 5'7" wide receiver, right? When you're thinking of he hasn't seen that production, right? His yards per route run has dropped every season. His efficiency hasn't been there, but he has a niche. You know what that niche is? Just being that yak guy, that kind of satellite back, the underneath guy. And you know what fits that system well? The Ram system, which they're bringing over to Atlanta. And I think that him being in this offense, and really when you're looking at the Atlanta depth chart, you're really looking at London and you're looking at, Kyle Pitts as being the 2 guys. Then it's really that battle for the 3rd guy, right? And I know they brought in Darnell Mooney, and they're going to have them there, but I think Rondale Moore kind of fits. He really goes in that slot position, and the ability to use some of those guys that we've seen, DeMarcus Robinson, some of these other guys in this system, this offense, I think highlights Rondale's more, versatility. And I think Zach Robinson's going to do that as offensive coordinator, is get him the football. And at wide receiver 89, now's the time to just take the shot on him, right? Just kind of wing it, go at it, and go take him. Now, when you're looking at dynasty value for Calvin Austin, Chase Claypool, and then a 4th, I mean, those to me are options to really go grab and just kind of take a shot with Rondale Moore. If you were buying in the last couple of years' prices, I'm sorry, but this year's prices are great. Tie with Kirk Cousins, who has shown and been able to kind of elevate that 3rd wide receiver. He's done that in the past, especially with the Vikings. He was a top 5 guy there, with Osborne, Justin Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson. He's been shown to be able to use that. Rondale Moore has sneaky upside in terms of that value and the kind of bargain that we're looking for when we're doing these videos. Now, the tight end position is late. You're looking at late round guys here. Now, I will say this ADP was right when Darren Waller retired. So you're going to see Theo Johnson there. I'd imagine Theo Johnson is going to bump up into this range. So we're not going to talk about him, but I don't think that Daniel Bellinger will, right? So when we're talking about late round guys, that could definitely be a shot there of guys that you want to target. I put Greg Dulcich on here. We're going to talk about him in detail, so I'll kind of leave that for next time. Hunter Henry, I think, could be an interesting piece because he could be that safety blanket for Drake May. And I think at tight end 27, if you really late or if you look for that tight end 2, Henry could be that option. Taysom Hill, man, this guy will not die. He as far as a fantasy asset, this dude's never going to die. He's alive forever. He's like Frankenstein out here. That guy, to me, is just someone who is that Swiss Army knife. We're hearing reports again how much he's involved in camp. Talking about kind of like the mini camps that they're having. They love this kid. He's out there always. Just take him and he'll have a couple years on there. Jared Wiley is interesting. And Daniel Bellinger's probably ADP is going to shoot up a little bit with the Waller retirement, but probably in the early 30s. And I still think that Bellinger, I love Theo Johnson, but I do think Bellinger being in that system, he might be the safer play and the more interesting play based on where their ADP is at. Now, the two guys I want to highlight, Greg Dulcich to me, I was never a Dulcich, truther as somewhere last year. But I mean, obviously, when you saw him, he had hamstring, foot injuries, all that stuff, just couldn't stay healthy. But again, when you're looking at opportunity, the opportunity is there. They got Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, if you still believe Greg Dulcich. I know they have Trotman there, but really Greg's the guy for them. I think that he could kind of be that safety blanket. He's only 24, was uber athletic, at UCLA, showed that he could be a sleeper, right? When we're thinking of like value-wise there. And he's really going for nothing. Tutu Atwell, a fourth, Rico Dowdle. I probably would read Rico in that last one, but the other two, I'm okay taking the shot there. And if you're looking for that tight end, especially in Dynasty, that you can kind of grab, I think Greg Dulcich is an interesting piece this year of someone who could rise in value, maybe be that red zone threat, right? Be that yak guy like he was in college. Those are the things that stand out to me about his profile. And then lastly, when you're talking about a guy, Jared Wiley, I will continue to pound the table for, because Jared Wiley is the typical Chiefs tight end who last year, you saw his numbers there at TCU, 56 targets, 47 receptions, very sure-handed, ability to kind of be a red zone guy, 520 yards and 8 touchdowns. He can produce, right? And we're going to be chasing the tight end two on the Chiefs for a long time, but they do like to use 12 personnel sets. He's a much more athletic Noah Gray, right? He can really kind of score touchdowns. He can be that red zone guy. To me, Jared Wiley is the perfect stash right now, tight end 37. He's for a fourth, essentially, a third in Tucker Kraft. AJ Dillon, Mike Gesicki in a fourth. Like, these are all deals that I'm willing to kind of roll the dice with Jared Wiley. To me, that is my number one target heading into startup drafts, is grabbing Jared Wiley late or even rookie drafts or rookie, in terms of waivers. Grab Jared Wiley and just stash him, because I do think that he plays a role in this Chiefs offense before all said and done. So that is our show. We're talking to just, having some fun, talking Dynasty bargain bin, little trades, little startup values out there for guys that we like, and just kind of overall some guys that kind of keep you on the radar after that 16th round, which is the hardest rounds, but they can provide value and win you some money. So appreciate you guys. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already, and we'll see you guys in the next one.